Welcome to the Authentically Successful Show. I'm Carol Schultz, founder and CEO of Vertical Elevation, a talent equity and leadership coaching and advisory firm. Listen at the end of the show for information about becoming my next guest on one of the most important podcasts for building thriving companies. Here we go. My special guest today is Christopher Carr, president and founder of Farotech. Chris, welcome to the show today.
Hey, thank you very much. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, I appreciate. I'm glad you're with us. So tell us a little bit about what Farotech does at a high level.
Sure. So we are a digital marketing agency. We're located outside of Philadelphia. But you know how you go and you think, hey, I want to try to develop. I have a company. I want to try to market my products or services. But at the end of the day, it's very unclear the amount of money that you put in versus the amount of money that you get out. And so, obviously the traditional name for that would be ROI.
Yeah.
We sort of developed a system over the last 20 years that is very ROI focused. And what we've done is we've essentially found a way to develop a system that generates leads, nurtures leads into clients, and then converts those clients into brand ambassadors or essentially raving fans.
Sure. Right. Word of mouth.
But at the heart of it, we're helping companies understand how to scale and how to essentially know for every dollar that I put in, the exact output of what I'm going to get out.
So what would you say is the biggest problem you solve for your clients?
Well, I think a lot of times they do what we kind of call like RAM. I don't know where I heard that from, but I stole that term from somebody. And RAM is random acts of marketing. And what I mean by that is that, you get, the average company or the CEO or something like that, they get an idea and then they chase down that idea. And then maybe Christmas comes along and they sprint to get ready for that, or they have a trade show. And what they're not doing is they're not building a system that compounds on one another. Right. They're just basically chasing hunches, notion, like others that they have in the back of their mind. But when it's done right, the data tells a very good story. No, I'm sorry. Like with our system, when it's done right, data will tell the story. We literally develop a book this thick. It's a 3 to 5 year. It's a 3 to 5 year roadmap.
Got it.
Got an entire scorecard, and it tells you exactly how to 5x or 10x your business. Like, we're not guessing. We have the data, the goals, and the KPIs to get us where we need to go. And got about a 93% retention rate. And so what that sort of means to us is over 20 years, we've sort of figured out how to get clients just really motivated and to see the vision, to embrace the vision, and to get really great results.
And you're public or you're private, excuse me. Yeah.
Yeah. We're a private company.
Okay. Have you sought venture capital? Have you bootstrapped? How have you built the company, Chris?
Ironically, I'm too boutique of a, no, it sounds like too snobby. What I mean by that is that I'm too, I like the culture that we built. I like all of the elements of what we built, whether we did it on purpose or whether we Forrest Gumped our way there. As soon as I take outside money, they're going to tell me what to do and how to do it and stuff like that. And let me keep in mind that I don't have that much of that. Very possible that it doesn't, but me knowing how I sort of operate, as soon as I feel like I'm beholden to somebody, I don't feel like it's mine. And that's one of the things that if I could do it and protect all the things that are near and dear for me,
consider it.
But I'm just not in that spot right now. And to tell you the truth is I don't entirely know what I want. And I don't mean that in a non-visionary way. I'm saying my kids are young. I might consider giving this to my kids one day, or I might try to cash out at the end of this rainbow. I haven't gotten to that part of the journey. We are just, we just really love marketing. And so that's what we do every day. And we're going to figure out the other stuff as we go. But, I think that that all of these leaders tell me that I need to know that. And I'm like, you know what? Maybe I do, but we're doing just fine. And we're happy with where we're at. We feel very successful. Our clients, I barely have to market. My clients do my marketing for me. And so we're just in a good spot. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's really fantastic. So you got out of school a while back, and you spent a year doing one job, and then you went and spent about 4 years as a project manager and a web developer before you started your company 20 years ago.
Yeah.
So tell me a little bit about the impetus behind, like, what had you start your own business, and tell us about the genesis of your company from 20 years ago, and how it's, where it started, if you've pivoted, where you've been, and where to where you are today.
Sure. I mean, there's the cool marketing version and the entrepreneurial genius version, and then there's the reality version, and it lives somewhere in between.
Sure.
The origin of this is I dated a girl in college, and keep in mind this was in 1999, and I thought if I could build this website, she was an artist. We had broken up, and I was going to say, you know what, the Casanova that I am, I'm going to put her artwork on this thing called a web page, and it's going to be so remarkable and wonderful. I tried to hire a guy, he did terrible, and then hired another guy, he did terrible. And by the time I got to a point where I'm like, the hell with it, I'll learn it myself. And by the time I'd done all that, I wasn't even talking to the girl anymore. And before I knew it, I'm building websites for small little companies. And, you wake up one day and one website turns into 2 websites, and 3 websites turns into 1 employee. And then 20 years later, you're an overnight success with payroll that gives you kidney stones, right? You know what I mean? And honestly, it's like a very Finding Nemo type thing. It's just like, you just keep swimming. You know what I mean? But developed a serious love for marketing, and started out in web development. And then a buddy of mine started an SEO company. And the best thing about his SEO company is it was reoccurring revenue. And when I started to get into web and reoccurring revenue through SEO, I started to be able to scale and figure out, hey, how do I hire other people so that we can grow faster? And without recurring revenue, and you're always hunting, you're just like, what happens if I don't land a sale that month?
Right.
You know what I mean?
That's right.
And so when I got into reoccurring revenue, I had clients saying, you built a great website, we're on the first page of Google, but the phone is still not ringing. And so that's when we really got into what we call conversion science. And the conversion science is sort of what separates us from most marketing companies. It's just like we really developed a very a strong niche of clients that we can help scale, because we're able to communicate very effectively on how to build systems. So it started in web, moved to SEO. Now it's web, SEO, and conversion science. A lot of what we say with conversion science is a term called inbound marketing that was made famous by HubSpot.
Right. How do you convert people to reaching out to you?
That's right.
Yeah.
But I'm not all in on HubSpot. What I mean by that is that I'm as married to outbound marketing as I am to inbound marketing. It just really depends on what you as a company need. Like if you're a disruptive company, you probably might not have enough inbound.
That's right. Right. Sure. Because you're evangelizing.
Exactly. Like people don't even know that you exist or what your strategic thing is. And it's like, what would they even type into Google? You know what I mean? They don't even, you're solving a problem that people know at the macro level that's a problem, but they don't, they haven't narrowed it down into the focus that you have for the reason that you started that company. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
so
I do. Yeah.
Then you're going to have to do some interruption marketing. You're going to have to really attack the problem. And then, after that, companies that have disruptive companies often are technology based. So now it's not just about, excuse the expression, like scalps on the wall. It's not always about new clients. You got to retain the ones you got. If I give you a bucket and I put 5 new clients in there, but 3 slip out, like we're not going to get very far.
Right. Exactly. So who generally is your prospect base?
Yep. Well, ironically, this is the weirdest thing in the world, and it just sort of worked out this way. I'm like 52% business to business and 48% business to consumer.
That's really interesting.
I know, and it just worked out that way. And it forced my staff to know both. It forced my staff to know both. You know what I mean? And so that's kind of
that's a very different sale for them.
It is. So we're really big in the healthcare space, particularly like orthopedics.
Okay, I noticed that. Yeah.
Yep. But even in orthopedics, there's business to business within orthopedics. And what I mean by that is that a lot of our approach will be to other physicians who will refer more leads.
Interesting.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then we also communitize the business to business approach. So like if you were, let's say hypothetically you're an orthopedic surgeon, right? You're not going to look on Facebook and this is Bob Smith. And he likes to take long walks on the beach, but he also has a bad back.
Right.
He's not going to tell you that he has a bad back, right?
Yeah.
But if I know Bob Smith is a cyclist And I know that anybody who's cycled longer than 3 to 5 years has a bad back, bad knees, and bad joints. Now I can work backwards and say, hey, you know what? Let's find these people that basically create pain for themselves. Where do they live? What do they communicate?
Sure.
What do they read? And now, rather than going after one client at a time, I'm going after one community at a time.
Mm-hmm.
And so I know, even though that's still business to consumer, once I put them in a group or a bucket, you start to think of them, you know, your business to business muscles kick in and you think, oh man, where do they live? What do they do? You know what I mean? And it's just interesting.
So, you know, would you say you have specific competitors out there? I mean, there are a lot of companies out there saying, you know, yeah, we do marketing. We're going to fix all this for you.
Yep.
So if you look out there at all these companies, you know, where are you finding your competition? You know, where are you fitting in among your competition? And what are some of the biggest challenges you're having?
No, I don't mean to say that we don't have any competition, because we absolutely do.
Everyone does, or some.
You know what I mean? But marketing, what's great about marketing is it's such a blue ocean type thing. And I think digital marketer has this incredible stat that, you know, even if every company in the world only used agencies, you know what I mean? And basically agencies didn't have to hunt to live. Every agency could effectively have 25 to 30 clients and we'd all be fed.
Right.
Does that make sense? In other words, there's that many companies compared to agencies. You know, it's just the ratio is in our favor for sure. You know what I mean?
That there's a lot of business out there for you.
Oh, it's amazing. And I know it sounds terrible, but like I'm actually friends with other agencies in my space. Sometimes you lose a bid, and even though you're emotionally attached to it, you're kind of like, it's like a bus. You're like, I'll get the next one. You know what I mean? It's crazy that that's there. The thing is, though, is that what we're really looking for are a good fit that's a win-win for the both of us.
Sure.
If I don't know how to describe it other than if you're a company that has aggressive growth goals and you're willing to dive into this science and nerd out on this stuff and love this stuff, then we help those companies crush it.
Do you have a particular average deal size, or does it depend on the size of the company you're selling to?
Well, I mean, the ongoing retainer, you know, you're probably looking between $8,000 and $10,000 a month. Yep. Our largest clients tap out probably at around 20 to 30,000. Not 20. 29 to 30,000 a month. Okay. That's my largest clients.
Yeah. Got it.
Yep.
Okay. Well, and those are probably much larger companies, obviously.
Yeah. And there's a weird tipping point where we have what's called a team-based approach, which means that marketing is moving too fast, and companies that say, oh, I got a marketing guy or gal, it's too much for that person, unfortunately. Right. And then that person's going to either look for multiple different vendors or continue to hire internally. And you can just wake up one day and you just got a lot of money out there, you know, just a lot of money going out. And every time you change your message or you want to do something, you got to call 8 different vendors and hope they're all swimming in the right directions. Our team-based approach is we spend a lot of money on our own team. Yeah. Subject matter experts. And so then you get to hire experts only at the portion that you need them. You don't need you might not need a full-time SEO guy. You might not need a full-time social media guy. But what you're going to do here is we're going to develop the gap assessment. I'm going to tell you what you need, and I'm going to carve out pieces of their time. Excellent. And then all of a sudden, if you're not on the first page of Google, I know it sounds weird, but it's actually harder sometimes to fire people than it is to hire people. In other words, there's a lot of companies where there's just deadwood employees that are just sitting there that are just getting very limited results. With us, if there's a certain portion that you don't like, you say, Chris, social media is not working. And I'm like, okay, that person's out. I've got someone else that can come in. Right. Do you know what I mean? So I've almost become a little bit of your virtual HR, your virtual bench. Yeah. Well, listen, that's a really smart way to do business, right? If something's not working for you, you're able to, pull that person off out of the dugout and put them on put somebody else on the bench or put somebody else up to bat. Right. Yeah. I mean, and they're already trained. They already know our system. They already know our science. It's just maybe their approach is different. Yeah. How many employees do you have currently? We have 20 employees, but with our part-timers, we're probably around 52. Okay. So 20 full-time employees. Yeah. A lot of writers. Content is a good portion of what we do. And so, right. So that's where all your part-time people come in. Right. Yep. Yeah. So if you look over, over the past 20 years, what kind of
turnover in your full-time people have you had? And why do you think that is?
Well, that's been very interesting because we know what the industry standard is,
Which is?
which the average person in my space only stays for about 3 years.
Okay.
That has not been true for us. We've found some really, really great people. We have a program where they're going to be able to grow and scale and
great,
find upward mobility. And I also find that people enjoy some of the flexible benefits. It's kind of weird. COVID sort of ruined it for me in the aspect of we have an office here that they can come work there, but then they can also enjoy like the luxuries of working from home.
Yep.
How that working from home has kind of been standardized, which is a little bit of a bummer, but we try as hard as we can to be as respectful with our people and give them the time that they need. And just know it's a little bit more of a family-based approach, which has been wonderful. We back each other up, stuff like that. And we don't have turnover. We don't have much turnover. Maybe with 20 people, we're probably looking at we might lose one, and on average, we've been about hiring 2 or 3, and we've been losing maybe 1 a year.
Okay, that's fantastic. So, what it sounds like is, what do you attribute to it? Is it culture? Is it money? Is it the work they're doing? Like, what's keeping people with you?
It's a great question. I think that we only have our project managers or account managers, if I can speak to them, they only get to have 5 clients. And so what happens is that eventually those clients almost feel like kids, or they almost feel like family. And I feel like they don't feel like they're drowning in client work the same way that the average person was, where they know these people personally, they know these companies personally. And I think that they get involved in their success. And so that, it's almost like when they're not working and they're in the shower, they're thinking about their clients and they're doing these things. And I've just found people that love marketing and love doing the job and love serving people and doing all those things. And I think they find a lot of value in that. From the other side, we have the biggest bunch of nutballs that have ever, they're just fun and they're crazy. And if you can read like our internal threads, they keep it light as possible. I just sent out a newsletter that we call the State of the Union. And I'd say 12% of it is news and 80% of it is just like the silliest side of our company. And so there's always little things all the time that, if you're not laughing, you're not trying. And that's what's been fun about this place.
Yeah. So if I were a new employee to your company, what would I notice kind of, let's say in my first days, weeks or a few months in the company from a cultural standpoint, specifically?
How do I say this other than these guys have come to work. They really enjoy what they do. They love their craft. They're really good at that.
Yeah.
But if you can't keep at that pace, it's just it's kind of weird. It's just this thing's a rocket ship, and everyone's pulling their weight. Everyone's rowing in the right direction. Everyone's helping each other out, and we're all very focused on that. And what happens is that if you come in and you're not a team player, you're not going to do those things, or you're just not coming to work, you're going to be found out very quickly.
Right.
And, all of our employees new employees get a 90-day tryout. And, unfortunately, sometimes. Yeah.
When you make hiring mistakes, what do you think is at the root of those things?
I get fooled in interviews, meaning I get fooled by resumes. I am very good at, if you are on the creative space, I'm very good at finding talent from a creative level. Hardest thing I can't find out is if you are what we call a GSD. Can you get shit done? Because I can get very smart people, right? Talented people, but for some reason they just can't execute. And when they can't execute, deliverables are the fuel.
That's at the root of the root of your business, the hub, really.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. And so that's one of the problems. One of the things that we do that's very unique is that we make people try out for the job, which means we do the formal interview on day 1, and then they come in, and then they have to present my sales presentation back to me in front of our leadership team. Super nerve-wracking, right? And we try to rattle you, but it's all of that's done, on purpose. Because if you can survive the gauntlet, you can survive the client.
So you do that, yet you still, to your point, you still sometimes get fooled, right? As you said. So
Yep.
After going through the whole process,
Yep.
Are you missing asking some questions? Or are you just not asking the right questions? Or do you feel people are just trying to snow you over?
Yeah. Sometimes you just fall in love. You know what I mean by that? They dazzle. They say all the right things. They do all the right things. Their slide deck looks good, and they're a good show pony. But just because you can do that doesn't mean that you can go in and get it done and work with others, delegate to others, do all that stuff. You know what I mean? We are very much against victim mentality.
Yeah, well, right.
You know what I mean? And that's
yes, I do.
And so we are always trying to like say, you know what, the buck stops with you. You know what I mean? So if it doesn't work out, it's like a lot of it comes down to ownership.
Another way of saying that is being accountable.
Yeah.
Right. And we can talk about this later, but there's certainly questions you can ask to determine, are people being accountable? And I will offer some of that to you when we're off air. But so what would you say is the most outdated advice in your industry that people might still be giving out? And you're like, I don't know why they're telling people that.
Well, the argument that I have is that when you think about marketing, right? It's very easy to wake up one day and realize that you built everything on sand. It's like you built your house on sand. So you think, hey, you know what? I just got to be on the first page of Google. Well, you could be one algorithm change about losing 40% or 50% of your traffic. You don't own Google, and that can happen. You could say, oh, you know what? I'm going to be really good at Facebook, right? There's companies that spend millions and millions of dollars, and then Mark adjusted his algorithm. And so 40% of the things that you used to see for free is now down to 2%.
And now you're SOL.
Yeah. And you think, well, those days are behind us, right? Well, literally Apple, you familiar with what Apple did 3 weeks ago?
You mean with not allowing Facebook to have your information if you don't want to?
I mean, they basically just rearranged the vocab. They were already asking this question anyway, but they were literally asking it in a new way. It says, do you want businesses to track you? You know what I mean? And everyone's like, hooray for privacy. But you know what? Like, it makes, as a marketer, it's very hard. It's much harder for us. We don't know the impact yet. It's too soon to know that.
It's going to take some time.
But I almost think that you don't think you want to be tracked. It's creepy, right? But if I'm looking for a hairdryer and then all of a sudden my ads are about washing machines and pet food, you know what I mean? Like I find that I make better decisions when I have more information. And so when they track me, I get better ads and better stuff. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I didn't even know this product existed. So it's weird because I joke around. So I ride a bike, right? When I'm on a bike, these cars are out to get me. They could murder me. I'm one car away from just them hitting me.
Yeah, putting in the hospital.
Who do they think they are? When I'm in a car and there's a biker on the side of the road, I'm like, who do they think they are? That they think that they can just take over the road at 5 miles per hour and we all have to just, you know what I mean? And so it really depends on what share you're in. So I'm pro privacy, but I'm also pro give me the information I want because I'd rather make a better decision because I have more data than hope that my research skills found me the products and services that I wanted.
Right. And that's exactly what, people, it's because so often I think people they listen to a soundbite on the news. Yeah. And it's a whole much longer conversation that we don't have time for, but they listen to a soundbite and they think, oh yeah, that's the way I don't want them tracking me, and then you see an interview with Zuckerberg who says, well, yeah, we're not happy about that, but here's the thing. Now you're just going to get all kinds of ads that are not relevant to you.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I guess it's a balancing act and people have to determine, I think people need to have all the information. And from that, they need to determine, do I want to be tracked so that at least the advertising I get is based on, what I want to see, or do I want to just do that research on my own and figure it out?
Yeah. I mean,
I know how I am, but everybody is not me.
Well, and I don't think
I ignore ads on Facebook.
I know. That's
Mostly because I
brain
can't
does.
stand Facebook.
Yeah, we're in the same camp, but you know
Yeah.
what? Like, I wish that there could be adjustments very easily. Be like, dude, I don't have a dog. Stop marketing me about dog food now,
Yeah.
because you don't know me anymore, because you're
Yeah.
not tracking me. You don't know me. You know
Right.
what I mean? It was better when you knew me. You know?
Yikes.
So, you know what I mean? We don't know what world we're living in. We know we hate the negative, but I'm finding, and this is another tangent, but I'm finding that this whole world has been throw the baby out with the bathwater. It's like this. I find that so much in life right now in the last 4 to 5 years has been one massive overreaction after another.
Yeah, well, yeah. That's an understatement.
It's just crazy, right?
Yeah. You mentioned when I asked you about who your prospect base is, you said you do a lot in healthcare, but I'm sure that's not all that you do.
Yeah, we do a lot of SaaS. We do a lot of cyber, do a lot of insurance.
Okay.
Here's how you know is that when the way our technology works is that when someone comes to your website, we're gonna put tracking code on their computer or cookies on their computer.
Right. Yep.
Every time they engage with your website, I'm gonna give them more and more points based upon what they do on your website.
Okay.
So if I create really great content, they're not gonna buy on the first time they come to my website.
No, of course not.
They might research and you know what I mean? And your sales team is gonna know that these people are down on a buying pattern. You know what I mean? They've come back a couple different times. The depth of the pages that they look at are significantly different than the people that are just dipping their toe in the water. And so what happens here is that we serve the clients really well, that their ticket, let's say that their product is over $1,000, and the people that come back just want to research. They want to know before they buy. If it's a transactional business, we're not as great there. In other words, we don't just sell hammers. You know what I mean? We want to we work with clients that want to clearly communicate why they're better than their competition.
Right.
Why your problem is bigger than you think.
Right. So if a company comes to you and they're basically selling that commodity, are you going to do the best thing for them and say, we're probably not the best agency for you?
Yeah. I mean, I think that's going to be pretty clear. I think one of the things that we have to figure out is, even if you have a transactional element to your business, is that all you are? Because I think the main thing, and if I don't emphasize this enough, is that it takes 2 months to build this book.
Sure.
It's not, you know what I mean? And so I know way, way, way more information about you, your industry, your client, all that stuff. And so even if a portion of your business is transactional, there could be things that we could do for you. But I'm going to let the data do the talking. I'm going to let all that stuff, I'm going to give you all the information you need, and then you're going to decide. And ironically, that's how we do our entire campaign. Every single month, every single quarter, you get reports, and I give you all the information, and then we're going to decide together. So if you say,
what makes sense?
They say, Farotech, you're not getting it done. I'm just talking hyperbole here. Like, well, which part don't you agree with? Because we both agreed on this together.
Right.
You know what I mean? And so that's a lot of times that's how a partner works. A vendor just says, hey, I'm going to just do this thing.
Right.
And if I'm right, I'm right. And if I'm wrong, I'm wrong. You know what I mean? We fire vendors. If a good partner is a good partner, we chose this together.
Sure.
We win together and we lose together. So I think the other part of the partnership thing from a marketing perspective is, at the end of the day, 9 times out of 10, you just want new clients or better clients. And if you say, hey, I want new clients, and I say, well, guess what? I get you 9,000 new Facebook followers. Like, that doesn't pay the bills.
Right.
I need contact us forms filled. I need first time appointments filled. I need whatever it is that we agreed to in the beginning. That's what matters. You know what I mean? And a partner is accountable for that. And a vendor just says, oh, I brought traffic to your website. I'm out. Pay me.
You had mentioned that you have a partner in the business. When did you bring that individual on, and why? And what is the value that he or she is bringing to the business?
Well, you sort of wake up one day and you can't be good at all things. I'm not good at a lot of things.
Right.
And so he came in 13 years into the business, and now he runs operations.
Okay.
So I get to dream it. I get to sit with clients, and we sort of just blast the vision.
Yeah.
And then I hand it to him and I'm just kind of like, get on it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
He puts it to use. Right.
In other words, all the account managers and stuff, they adopt it and he makes sure the account managers are working with the project managers and the production team to get everything done.
Mm-hmm.
So he's definitely formalized the business, which has been wonderful.
Mm-hmm.
And, I believe that I'm in kind of like my unique superhero position in the company. It's like the weirdest thing ever, but the more I talk, the more the company makes. And I can't figure out why or how, but I'm not going to argue with it.
That's great.
And so if I'm sitting planning my calendar or reading emails, I haven't read emails in 12 years. I've had an assistant do that. I read it on weekends, and I'm sounding more heroic than I really am, but I'm just not a great communicator in that way.
I'm with you on that. I'm a completely oral communicator.
Yeah. And I'm the same way.
The written word is not my wheelhouse.
Yep. And audiobooks too.
Yeah.
In other words, I crush an audiobook a week.
Yeah. I'm the same way. Isn't that funny?
Yeah.
I listen to books when I'm out horseback riding, when I'm at the gym, when I'm fixing supper, whatever. Whenever I get an opportunity that I'm not at my desk, when I'm in the truck, driving to the ranch, all those things. Yeah.
Yeah. But you can wake up one day and you think that like they should be mind readers. Cause I think this bad habit that maybe someone like you and I have is that we read it and we answer it in our mind, but we just never typed it. You know what I mean? And then clients are like, hey, were you going to answer me on that? I'm like, oh man, I had already figured this out for you. I just never sent it.
I have that issue sometimes. I really have to literally write everything down. Otherwise I will forget. I had an interview earlier today that I had scheduled last week and completely forgot to send an invite out. Like,
yeah. Do you know what, you ever heard of a tool called Voxer?
I've heard of it. Yeah.
So Voxer it's the same thing as text message, but it's all audio based.
That's right. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And so I have all my employees, in particular my assistant. And as soon as I get off this call, right? We end this call and you and I talk about one or two things and it's great. I'm programmed after 12 years to go there and just say, Christy, this is what I learned on the call. This is what our next steps should be.
Yeah, very good.
Write this email and talk to these two people. Go.
Yep. Fantastic.
And, you know what I mean? And that's how I live, because if I leave it for later, I'll leave it. I'm leaving it to chance.
Yeah, that's so interesting. Yeah. That's so interesting. I'm exactly the same way. I know people who will wait till the very end of the day to do all their email responses, everything like that. If I wait till the end of the day, I will not get it done.
I know. I envy them.
I do. Yeah. That's just not who I am.
I know.
Yeah.
I have to. And people will be like, why are you sending this to me on a weekend? I'm like, because it's in my head now, because
right. If I wait, Monday, otherwise I have to go to my desk. I have to write myself a note or a reminder and it won't, yeah.
Yep. And I'm passionate about it now.
Yeah. So, 20 full-time employees, where do you see yourself growing? I mean, are you happy where you are currently, the size of your company, financially, what you're bringing in? Are you looking to say, you know what, we really would like to grow X amount over the next 3 years or whatever that might look like? Like, where are you? Yeah. Where's your head on that?
I mean, from a revenue model, I'd like to get to around $10 million. I would like to keep my staff as lean as possible.
Okay.
I would like my employees to be paid as much as possible. And what I haven't figured out is how to get out in any way, shape, or form. What I mean by that is, do I sell this thing? I don't know. Do I have it down? I don't know. That's the part I don't know. You know what I mean? I also try to keep the company nimble enough that we don't know what we don't know. And there might be this
very good,
this idea that we have, and Farotech becomes 70% of my life. And then I take on another project that's 30% of my time. I just don't know. I'd like to write. I'm in marathon training for my first TED Talk next year. So that should be cool.
Awesome.
And so I just don't know where it's going. You know what I mean? But I'm enjoying the ride.
Yeah. And I really love that you recognize the realm of you don't know what you don't know, because I refer to that as a blind spot.
Yeah.
And, for most of us, we work in the realm of, you know what you know, and you know what you don't know.
Yeah.
And the question is, how do you get into those blind spots to bring them out? Because that's where the genius happens, in my opinion. That's where transformation occurs. That's where everything happens, is in the blind spots. Once those blind spots are uncovered.
Yep. And you know, you horseback ride, right? I ride a bike, and I'm telling you, like, it sounds weird to say this, but my next big thing I'm going to think of on my bike, because I unintentionally made so much noise in my life.
Yeah.
That I find that next great thing somehow when I can detach.
Yeah, that's fantastic.
I don't hear it in the noise. I hear it. There's something that I have to ride my bike long enough to forget why I'm riding, and I need to zone out, and I need to forget everything else. And then I'm like, oh my gosh. You know what I mean? Like, yeah,
that's fantastic.
It's weird. It's like, I know where the epiphanies live. Yeah. It takes work to get there.
It takes a lot of work. People don't realize how much work it takes to uncover blind spots. It takes a long time for a lot of people. And most people, for them to get there, need somebody to help them figure it out, because, somebody else sees the things you don't see in yourself.
I hired my first life coach after, I've been doing this for 20 years. And it's so weird. I mean, all of that person's doing is just helping me like clean out my garage in between my ears. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like, I think that they were going to come in here and be like, oh my goodness, I've read all of these books. I've done all this training. I've done all this stuff. We're just going to remap your whole life. And they're just like, nope, let's kill some noise, get organized, stuff like that. Good. It's just so weird. But if I didn't pay them, I don't think I could get there. Maybe I could.
You're not going to get any argument out of me. A great coach is worth everything in the world.
Yeah.
So if somebody were getting into your industry now, Chris, what's the advice you'd give to them?
Yeah. The problem that I have that I wish I could unplug from is I wish I could get super niche focused and stay in that niche, know my swim lanes in that niche, and be really, really good at marketing solve one really big problem.
Right.
The temptation in marketing is trying to be all things to all people, because people will always come to you and say, oh, I got this problem. And you're like, well, let me just unplant from everything I know to solve that little problem from you. And then you ever heard like the thing was like, oh, can I get 5 minutes? Can I get 5 minutes? Right? Like, you ever seen that before? Like, in other words, all my employees will just say, hey, can I get 5 minutes? There's no such thing as 5 minutes, right? It's always 10 minutes, 20 minutes, or whatever that is. But every time they take 5 minutes, it takes me 20 minutes to get back to the focus of where I was at.
Sure. You're right.
And that's what happens with
that's a lot. That's a huge cost.
In marketing, it's like, for a couple bucks, you're willing to derail your vision because it's a couple bucks and you can't turn it down. Yeah. You know what I mean? And unfortunately, I know that about myself, but that doesn't mean I've been able to course correct it. Because there's a guy with a shiny new company that I fall in love with a little bit. And I use that expression a lot. Like, in other words, I see a client and I see what's possible, and I see very clearly how they could just adjust their marketing, and I fall in love with, like, oh my gosh, I could totally do this. You know what I mean? It's like,
I know exactly what you mean. And yeah, that's where you need to, where you need to really look at the costs and the costs and the benefits around that particular issue. And when I say benefits, by the way, I mean like the benefits that I would be looking for, or the benefits like of being a heroin addict. That's the best analogy I can make.
I'm sure there's some.
So it's really not a benefit. Like, you may feel good, like, initially, gosh, I really want to solve that problem. But in the long run, it might be more damaging than staying on your course with where your genius is.
Yeah. Yeah. I read this book. So my family, my father-in-law is a pastor. My brother-in-law is a pastor. He's talking about this book. And in the book, the guy was like, oh, you know what? You're living this really good Christian life, but you know what? What you're going to do is you're going to go out and you're going to buy a boat. And when you buy a boat, it's going to be a blessing to your family, and it's going to do all this stuff, right? And you're like, yeah, you're in a boat. It's like, oh yeah, but you know what? One weekend a month, you're going to have to basically get the boat cleaned. That's going to take about 8 hours. And then something like that. And then you got to winterize it. And then you got to summarize it, stuff like that. And the boat, while it started out being awesome, right,
is now a chore.
Like now it's a chore. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, I got quotes. I got quotes for a swimming pool. My kids are 5 and 3. I'm like, swimming pool. I hated the quote. It's so much money for a brand new pool. It's like, it doesn't even seem fathomable. Anyhow, I talked to pool owners and they're like, a lot of positives, a lot of negatives, all the stuff you're not thinking about with that pool. It's, you know what I mean? You're only seeing the positives.
That's right.
Every new client that comes in, I see all the positives, but I don't see the negatives. You know what I mean? Like, oh, you can't be on that podcast because you got to be at that guy's office, you know, or you can't, all those opportunities, there's these opportunity costs.
That's right.
Because you wanted to help this guy out because you felt like,
that's right. Yeah, that's great.
Yeah.
Did COVID require you, like, how did COVID, if at all, require you to adjust how you do business? And are there any changes you put in place that are going to become permanent?
Yeah. So COVID helped us out a lot. What I mean by that is that from a client base, there's a lot of companies that wanted to be digital and knew they had to go digital. And then all of a sudden, once the world said, hey, you can't shake hands, you can't kiss babies, you can't do all of this stuff that you've been doing to sell for all these years, right? Now they're thinking, well, how are we going to be able to drive that attention? And so they're like, well, we should go into digital. And a lot of people that were very resistant for years basically got on the boat.
Awesome.
And so our sales were, you know, we're up 60% over the last 2 years.
Fantastic.
Yeah. So that's been wonderful for us. We were already virtual. You know what I mean?
Yep.
So that's, you know,
that hasn't changed.
Yeah, exactly. So I think it's honed our skills on how to win virtually. So I built this, like, my office, like if you ever go to my website, even farotech.com, you can see, I built this like really cool looking office because I wanted this like Walt Disney marketing experience when you walk in to feel creative and all that stuff. I had to learn how to win without that because I have a very cool home court advantage. Yeah. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah.
And so I had to, nobody would come in. You know, you pay $8,000 a month and nobody will come see it.
Yeah. Well,
you know what I mean? So you just got to, you know, so I had to win without that advantage. You know what I mean? A lot of things, you know, I kind of learned, I enjoyed, in the very beginning of the COVID, I thought it was like a blessing because I got more time with my family.
Sure.
Which is wonderful. But I also learned very quickly, I had to be back here because, you know, they say like, oh, your kids never leave you alone. I'm like, no, I don't want to leave them alone. You know, they're in there.
You want to play with them all day, don't you?
Yeah, they're in there eating popcorn and watching Frozen again. And I'm like, yeah, well, that could be me. Yeah, I had to detach from fun and just like, yep. Yeah, I want the country open again so bad.
Well, I think it depends on where you are, whether how open how open you are. You know, where I am in Colorado, you know, my county lifted our mask mandate, I don't know, a couple weeks back, and you know, there's stores that still have them, but people are, you know, because we're spread out where I am. Yeah. So I'm you know, grateful to be in an area like that. You know, Colorado as a whole, there are some hot spots, some areas, but not where I live. That's the difference, right? I'm in a more rural area, and the more rural you get, you know, you don't really have these issues.
They lifted our mask mandate last week in Pennsylvania. Yeah. I went to the gym without a mask, and we're all like looking at each other, and it was like a fish out of water experience.
Right. It's very weird after 14
very
months.
Weird. It's just very weird.
Yeah. So right. So Chris, if someone listening wanted to, you know, is thinking, this is, you know, I have skills that could be really valuable to Farotech. You know, what should they do?
Well, reach out, you know, info@farotech.com. A couple different things. One, you know, hiring about 3 to 5 different people a year on average. And we do internships every semester, you know, the fall semester, spring semester and
sure.
summer. And so if you're at the college level, like
Mhm.
take advantage of the internship. You're going to learn more in an internship than you may have learned for 4 years.
Sure.
So that's a big one. But
Mhm.
if you're looking for actual employment, please reach out. We're hiring all the time, and we're always looking for kind of the best and the brightest, which is
Good. And give us the correct spelling of your company's name so people know how to find it.
It's info at Farotech, FAROTECH.com. And if you're familiar with the movie Boiler Room that I took the name from 20 years ago, don't spell it like that. Spell it FAROTECH.com.
Great. I love it.
Yeah. There was a movie, and people that saw the movie 20 years ago, they're like, Farotech. I'm like, yeah, we stole it from them. Never meant to keep that name. And
that's so funny.
I know.
Well,
I needed something in a pinch. And
no. I got you. That's really fantastic. Well, Chris Carr, president and founder of Farotech, headquartered in Pennsylvania, digital marketing agency. Thanks so much for being with me. I really appreciate it. And I know my listeners are going to get a lot about, from hearing about your journey and where you've been and where you are now.
This is great. Well, you're probably about the easiest person to talk to in the world. What do we blast through? 50 minutes, 40 minutes in no time. So this has been.
I appreciate that. Thanks, Chris. Yeah. All right. I appreciate it. Thanks again. And we'll talk again soon.
Sounds great. Thanks.
Thank you for listening to Authentically Successful. If you are a successful founder or CEO who would like to be on this program, please visit verticalelevation.com/podcast/apply. If you learned something from this interview and it made a difference, please share it on LinkedIn or Twitter. You can also do a quick screenshot with your phone and text it to a friend. And if you know of someone who would be a great guest, tag them on LinkedIn or Twitter to let them know about the show and include the hashtag Authentically Successful. I love seeing your posts and great suggestions. Lastly, we are regularly putting out new episodes and content. And to make sure you don't miss any episodes, please subscribe. Your thumbs up, ratings, and reviews go a long way to help promote the show and mean a lot to me and my team. If you want to know more, go to our website, verticalelevation.com, or follow me on LinkedIn. This is Carol Schultz. Thanks again for listening, and see you next time.